I've invited all the people to the show. Hello and welcome to the show this week. It's a new show about Cable Guy. Cable Guy. It's a show about the guy who does your cable. Cable Guy. Cable Guy.
Speaking of Tenacious D,
Dude,
they're in the movie.
there were so many people from Mr. Show, period, including Jack Black. I didn't notice Kyle Gass, but if you're saying he's
He
in
was at
there,
the
he's
end. He
oh,
at the end. He
okay.
grabbed the book.
Perfect. How's everybody doing?
Bonjour.
I'm
This is
tired.
this is the newest episode of Hey, did you see this one? This is the final movie of the Summer of Summer movie series. I finally said it right perfectly the first time. Just in time to get ready for the Halloween, the autumn of awesome October horror series.
October horror.
October horror. So I've been drinking delicious Coke Zero to prepare. I'm not having beers tonight. Um,
I'm drinking water.
delicious.
I'm
Colin.
having orange juice.
Are we
Like
all having it sober?
A little.
I
I have
so.
a little bit of wine in mine.
Wine. Okay, then you're basically not drinking.
You're a liar.
What? Wine's actually amazing.
Mine's pretty well. Steve knows about wine.
Yes, I drink
What
lots
you know,
of wine.
Steve? I like the wine with
All
the
right.
dragonfly on it.
Dragon wine.
What wine is that?
I don't know the name of it. It's blue.
Dragonflying.
It
Dragonflying.
definitely isn't. But I will say this might be one of the quickest titles said in a movie.
Yeah, because he's like, Cable Guy! Like, immediately.
I'm waiting for the cable guy. Where's the cable guy?
Which is pretty great. Did you clock it? Did you clock it from...
The first one was 4 minutes, 45 seconds.
Wow. That's basically just that intro bit where you just see old clips from old TV shows. Well, they weren't old at the time. They were the television shows of the time. I actually watched... So that scene... Well, that's old. That was old even for then. But there's the scene where they showed Jerry Springer, and it's the woman who's like, I'm actually a man. I watched... there's a show on Vice that's a spin-off of Dark Side of the Ring called Dark Side of the 90s. I highly recommend it. But the first episode is actually about the boom of those kind of talk shows in the 90s, and they showed that scene on it. So I thought that was apt for this.
Boom. What caused that boom?
Well, basically what happened was that there were the shows like Geraldo and Sally Jesse Raphael, which were pretty tame. They were just like pretty tame. Like, it wasn't like the way that it is on Jerry Springer, where it was just like full-on fist fights. Then what happened was Geraldo Rivera was like, I'm going to go into the basement of this hotel that Al Capone had a bunch of one of those safes in, and I'm going to crack the safe. And there was nothing inside. And then meanwhile, Jerry Springer comes along, and he's the most boring, most basic show. And then simultaneously to that, Oprah was having on prostitutes and call girls and like gay people and stuff, and then the ratings race started from there. Then Jerry Springer was just like,
was she trying to get their side of it though, or?
Yeah, like she was pretty as I recall, Oprah was pretty good about it. It wasn't as exploitive as it would get, but Jerry Springer was he had this scandal where he had paid a prostitute while he was the mayor of Cincinnati or something. So he was already on the cusp of being a trash TV person. But his show was so boring that they almost canceled him.
The mayor?
Yeah, and then he was like, I'm gonna go ahead and have on ridiculous stuff like this man is married to his horse. And then there was an arms race from there. Other shows like Ricky Lake and Jenny Jones came along.
Jenny Jones. Who was the other one? Wasn't there another one that looked like Ricky Lake but wasn't Ricky Lake?
I don't recall. Jenny Jones was like the same kind of show, but they didn't really look alike.
Blonde, though.
Yeah, Jenny Jones infamously had on like two friends, and the guy like came out to his friend, and then the friend killed the other guy, and that went to court. And that was a whole thing. So basically, I just reiterated the whole first episode of Dark Side of the 90s. This is now a Dark Side of the 90s podcast. Stay tuned next week where we talk about Biggie and Tupac. And Kurt Nirvana after that. Kurt Nirvana. Steve's just like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving.
No, I just want to grab my glasses.
So yes, this week we watched the dark comedy classic Cable Guy.
Cable Guy.
From 1995.
So,
what do you guys remember about the what captivated you guys when this movie first came out?
I watched this movie so many times as a child, like a ridiculous amount of times. Me and my friend Matt, when we were kids, would just run around quoting the Cable Guy constantly.
What were some of your quotes?
Correctional Patholi.
Yeah.
When he would call me, he would say, "Steven, my lisp is gone," and then I would punch him in the face, and then he'd go, "You stupid son of a bitch."
You stupid son of a bitch.
Nice.
It's like when Kirk and Spock had to fight on Star Trek Best Friends. Yeah. Tons.
Yeah. I used to do the honk honk all the time when I was a kid. It's funny too because like it was definitely great. My dad rented this for us in like right after it came out in video, so I would have only been like 10 when I watched it for the first time. And it's so weird because like compared to The Mask, which I actually saw in theaters like probably 3 times when I was, a couple years previous to this, probably 7 or 8 years old. It's not like super adult by comparison. The Mask is still pretty like PG-13.
Yeah.
But I don't think a 10-year-old. I don't think I understood most of the stuff that was happening in this movie, except for Jim Carrey just having a lisp, and
Yeah.
some of his references I would have gotten at the time to movies and TV shows. Matthew Broderick was in every movie in the 90s, so,
They loved
recognized
he was really
him.
in a ton of stuff. This was like close, within 3 years of like Godzilla and stuff, and like just...
Godzilla was 99, and Inspector Gadget was right around there as well.
Right.
Oh yeah, Inspector Gadget.
I forgot about Inspector Gadget. So it was always weird to me because this movie was considered to be terrible when I was a kid, and I never understood why, and I still don't understand why to this day.
They weren't ready for it. It's because Jim Carrey was known for not that type of style.
Well, yeah.
Like
sorry. When I say I don't understand why, what I mean is I understand why. I just think it's a stupid reason.
Yeah.
So, as I understand it,
in line with, sorry,
I was just
like a weird delay.
Yeah, you cut out for a second, and it came back, and then things happened. And
as I understand it, Chris Farley was actually supposed to play this character.
Yeah,
and
that's a completely different movie.
I would say this character is more in line with his character from what's that one where he has multiple personalities? Me, Myself, and Irene.
All right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Chip reminded me of. He reminded me of that guy a lot more than Ace Ventura or The Mask or, character comedy from In Living Color.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up the trivia for on IMDb for this movie because I'm really interested to know more about stuff because Jim Carrey was like notorious for just taking over movies.
So there was a little bit of that. One thing that I did read about that blew my mind. So the like sub movie or whatever that's going on, the court case thing, with Sam and Stan's suite or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a scene in the courtroom where they're playing the 911 phone call, and apparently it's Jim Carrey doing it. And so there's this theory. Yeah, there's this theory that Jim Carrey was what's his face's like cable guy and wanted to be friends and like knew him from the show and like liked him and shit like that, but then wouldn't be friends with him. So he killed his brother and framed him.
That's a great fan theory. It's also that's the play of the Menendez brothers, which was a big high-profile court case right around the time of O.J. Simpson, right around the time of Lorena Bobbitt, when CNN was just starting to come out of its shell as the headline news more so. These super glorified court cases that had a lot of attention, and it basically reality TV show before reality TV show were these crazy court circuses on television. It's so crazy to think about now that in the late '90s, everything on TV was like was appointment TV. Like, unless you recorded it on an actual VCR, if you didn't watch something, it went away forever.
Yeah.
Unless they later put it on video and released it.
Well, that's why cable was so important to have. If you didn't have cable,
you were so cool if you had
conversation on the playground when you were a child.
Yeah. Exactly. And when he says to Steven, cable's the ultimate aphrodisiac. I can't relate to that now. If I bought my wife cable, she'd be like, we don't need cable.
Yeah.
we have 6 streaming services.
Yeah, I don't know anybody under the age of 40 that has cable. I think I know like one person that has cable that doesn't like still live with their parents or whatever.
All you need is
wireless. Kaylin, I think you were one of the last people I knew that had cable, even when I lived in Halifax.
When I lived at Brunswick, I had it while I was there because I just got the whole package or whatever. Because that was before. I don't think it was before Netflix, but it was before I had Netflix, and so I kind of relied on it.
Yeah, it was right around when Netflix came out, or not came out, but I feel like Netflix wasn't super. Yeah, I feel like it wasn't super common even 12 years ago when we lived in Brunswick Towers. Because I feel like we would have been all over that shit if it was.
Well, I think it came out. When did it come out? 2007, I think it was.
Yeah. Was it still a video? Was it still a DVD? Well, you're always reluctant when it comes to technology.
No, well, I was against the whole. Well, actually, no. So my buddies would like just download shit, and I was like, nah.
That's hilarious. I just read a trivia fact here that speaking of the losing the lisp bit,
right.
Him losing the lisp, getting it, or losing it and then getting it back was a slip up on Jim Carrey's part. He just forgot to lisp in that scene, and then
really?
they just ad-libbed it. Yeah, according to this, cool. I don't know if there's no there's no citation for these trivia facts. Here, I've got a trivia fact for you.
Guy. Yeah.
In the scene where they're fighting atop the satellite dish. The satellite dish is actually played by Michael Mann.
Wow, I didn't know that. I do think one of the funniest bits in the movie, though, is that he, on more than one occasion, creates his own theme music to what's happening to make the scene in his mind more intense, which is something that I used to do all the time. I still do it sometimes. We going down the stairwell in my building, and it'll be like dun 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 dun. It's more.
But when he's climbing up the ladder, and he's like, "Man, things like this are things like this are always so much better when there's an epic theme."
Yeah. It's like going back to this movie being reviled when it first came out. It's strange because you watch it now and it's so reminiscent of a million comedies that came after it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it came out too soon. If it had come out in 2001, it would have been right at home and sort of like the zeitgeist of what we wanted as consumers and viewers.
I mean, Leslie Mann was in it. I was just going to say, I was thinking about this because Leslie Mann's in the movie, but it does remind me of a Judd Apatow movie, and it also reminds me of Fairly Brothers.
Yeah, he produced it.
I just found this out. Judd Apatow had his hand in it.
But he didn't write...
He was a writer.
He revised. He did some revisions, but it was uncredited.
Good. Can you guys hear me? I feel like I'm on a weird delay. I'm saying things and I...
That time you said something, but it kind of cut out.
Yeah, my mic keeps dropping. Hold on.
We'll figure out these technical difficulties eventually.
What if we did it on? What if we did it on a computer?
All right, I'm just gonna not use my headphones.
Cool. Yeah, we have to do this. Eventually, we have to do this on a computer.
Yeah. I don't know why we're not doing it on the computer.
Because the whole premise originally was me and Kaylin wanted to have a live show, but what we should be doing is...
Can't you do it on the Instagram website though?
No, well, I mean, it would just be the same thing.
You can't do it on your computer.
No, but would it be better connection or something instead of a phone?
I don't think you can actually do Instagram through a computer. Like, I don't think you can do it through a webcam. You can only do it on your phone because Instagram.
Yeah.
For any reviews out there, feel free to leave a comment and let us know, how does technology work?
Do you understand Instagram? I don't.
I'm an old man. Look at these gray hairs.
Instantgram is what I keep calling it.
I gotta say, the basketball game though was awesome. One of my memorable scenes.
Absolutely. What were like? Was that something that going into this movie you were like excited to see? Because it's always the medieval scene for me that I'm like stoked to watch. It's so stupid, but it's so like. And the other thing I love is the where he's in jail, and then Jim Carrey comes as his lawyer, and Jim Carrey's just like, "Oh, Billy, remember that scene in Midnight Cowboy or Midnight Express?"
I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming it's a girl in that version.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Because Jim Carrey is such like a weird creep. Like he's a weirdo, right? Like in everything he's in. So like, anytime like there's sex involved with him as a person, I'm like, ugh. I don't want to think of you having sex ever. So like the weird sexual stuff in this movie, it doesn't resonate as much with me. It doesn't stick in my mind. So like the whole nipple thing, like I almost forgot that is in the movie, even though I think that was like part of like one of the main bits in the trailer when we were kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
it absolutely was.
Wacky Jim Carrey movie. Look, he's rubbing.
What? Did they show that on TV? I guess it's a guy's nipple.
Yeah, the dude's nipple.
Yes, they can show nipples. They can show.
Can't show girls' nipples?
Yeah, they can now. You see boobs all the time on TV now.
No, but not in a trailer in 1995.
No, but you can show a man nipple in a trailer in 1995.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the things that like I remember hearing about this movie before seeing it. My dad was like a big Jim Carrey fan, but I think my mom and my dad watched it and they didn't really want me to watch it right away.
Yeah. Missed you there.
Did my mic drop again? I'm not even using my headphones. Oh my god. Okay, let me just restart.
Mic drop. What?
We'll figure this out. It's sometimes this works flawlessly, and sometimes we have some
peanuts.
technical.
I seeing a microphone symbol in the corner of my screen, and then that's when you guys can't hear me. It's like a red microphone, and then it disappears. And I'm like, what's going on?
That's weird.
Why is this happening?
Special.
Is it because of your
what?
Is it because of your internet, or is it?
I don't think it's my internet, because my internet is fine right now, but I think it's just
one
Instagram.
scene that I always remember is the karaoke scene and the vibrating his throat to make the falsetto or whatever that word is.
So it's funny that you should mention that. I actually wrote down in my notes that when I was a kid, I loved that shit and actually liked that song because of this movie. But this time watching it, that scene just annoyed me. Like when the truth is bad, like it just bugged me. I don't know if that's because I I actually found Jim Carrey's performance in this movie to be pretty cringy a lot of the time. Um, I don't know if it's just because my taste in comedy has changed a bit, or if I've just seen this movie too many times and Jim Carrey's shtick is just kind of old to me. But did you guys have any?
Shtick.
But did you guys have any of that? Like, I thought on the one hand, like Jim Carrey was being a little bit too over the top, but also like Matthew Broderick's character could have lightened up a little bit, and most of the stuff wouldn't have happened.
He was very straight. He was very straight laced.
Yeah, to a fault.
I think that somebody, providing you with
Here
a
I am
without telling you that you're having sex with a prostitute is probably it's crossing some.
That's fucked. That's messed up.
Well, that's kind of flips on itself, right? Like, at first he's like, I don't want to hang out with this guy, because imagine just an Uber driver brought you your meal, and then he was like, you want to hang out later? And you're like, no.
That's how you remake this movie right now. That's how you make that movie this movie for the times.
You flip it
into an Uber driver.
But if you flip it, the Uber driver comes to the guy's house to drop off the food, and then the guy at the house is like, you want to hang out? And the Uber driver's like, no. And then because this guy has your information, he's like, I'm going to hang out with you and just be called customer guy. Customer guy. That's a terrible idea.
It could be it's not a terrible idea. It could use some crisping up.
It could use some punch up the jokes a bit.
Yeah, throwing a joke here and there. Once you get the skeleton of it, you just put whatever you want on it.
You just fill in the holes.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
Sorry, you guys dropped out again. I couldn't hear what you said.
Customer guy.
Oh,
did you hear my?
No, I think it's a terrible idea. They shouldn't do it.
I guess.
I think rewatching.
Here's a fact.
Now, when I was younger, I definitely was like, why doesn't he want to hang out with the cable guy? Like, he seems like a fun guy. He's got a lot of energy. He likes going to medieval times. He's got lots of fun movie and TV quotes. But then watching,
you guys have medieval times where you are?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's medieval times in Toronto.
My house. Yeah.
Have you guys been?
Oh yeah.
Not since I was a child.
Same.
Is it cool?
It's exactly the same as the movie. Literally, except for they'll never have a fan come and, join in on the medieval times. We actually went on our grade 9 trip to medieval times, and I went there again when I first moved here as an adult.
Yeah. Huh.
It was the same experience both times, and it was the same experience as what you see in the cable guy.
Well, there was that one time I joined a wrestling show.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing to do.
They said they challenge anyone.
That's not what that means.
I forget what they said exactly, but they basically said, you know, we challenge anyone to try and step in here or something.
What? What? Isn't
I
the
went
movie?
to a wrestling show with my buddy,
Oh,
and there were some guys in the ring, and they said something along the lines of, we challenge anyone to step in the ring with us. And then I was like, okay. Pardon?
That seems extremely dangerous.
Yeah,
Well,
you never. If you go to a wrestling show, you've signed a contract, almost verbally,
yeah.
unwritten contract that you're not going to, even if they say we challenge anybody here to get in the ring, you're never going to get in the ring because the whole point is that they have plants or they have somebody that's scheduled to come out from the back. Sorry to pull the curtain back on pro wrestling, but it's all written down beforehand.
They were very upset and startled when they turned around and saw me in the ring. Sorry, what was that, Steve?
I said, what? This is a hot take. You're telling me that wrestling isn't real? It seems so real. I saw the movie.
I'm sorry to reveal it to you that sometimes wrestling is not real.
Holy moly.
Sometimes wrestling is very real though, and that's when some shit happens, like Kalen jumping in the ring, and then probably getting nearly beaten to death by the security guards.
Well, no. So, like the guy. Well, first off, I mean, the fact that I got up in there, I think that speaks more for, you know, someone else, or maybe it speaks for me too. I don't know, but
the guy's acting was so good that you were like, yeah, this guy's for real.
Had to get in there.
But yeah. the guy, the main wrestler guy, turned around and saw me. I was like, what? Like, I don't think he said what the fuck, but he definitely gave the look of what the fuck, and like kind of gave me like an arm, kind of like a clothesline or whatever, over the ropes, and I did like a little swirly thing and landed on the other side. I was like, yeah.
Okay, so you sold it. You sold it, and you landed on your feet, which you definitely shouldn't have done. But then did security come over and grab you by your scruff and throw you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because, yeah, that was extremely dangerous to do that because, you know, like, wrestlers are all over the place. Like, psychologically. You could get the wrestler you got who just gave you a nice, you know, tidy clothesline, and then security dealt with you, or you could have had like multiple wrestlers in the ring literally beat you up, like beat you up for real.
With their fake wrestling moves?
No, with their real punches and their real kicks.
I'm just joking. For any of our wrestler viewers out there, I definitely realized my fault. I was drunk, but that's not an excuse. I apologize to your community. I did not mean to start anything, but it was fun.
I'm glad things went okay for you. I'm glad that you didn't get beaten into oblivion.
So we should never take Kalen to medieval times because he's going to try and actually get into the fighting pit and joust somebody.
I wonder if they have a protocol in medieval times for people that have seen the Cable Guide too many times, and they're like, I'm going to jump in there and mix it up with these guys, with Andy Dick.
Yeah. Lord Chip Douglas and Master Steven Kovacs, make your way to the fighting
customer
pit.
I asked.
That might have been the soberest I've ever seen Andy Dick.
Yeah.
The straightest, did you say?
The soberest.
The sober. Yeah. But Waterworld was a great movie. Why does no one like Waterworld?
Because it was a big budget flop.
But it was.
Yeah, Waterworld's not a good movie. I watched it recently. It's bad. No,
it's a great movie. How is it bad?
No, it's bad.
Is it great, or like, do you have nostalgic love for it because you saw it when it came out?
I saw it when it came out. I actually watched it not too long ago as well, and it's still great. Like, what's not to like about it?
Kevin Costner
never
drinking his
watched
own
it.
pee.
Yeah, I never watched it as a child, so watching it as an adult, I was like, this movie is very boring, and like the
Boring.
music is lame, and the special
The
effects are
world
bad.
has what's it called when all
Dennis
the things
Hopper is
melt and
too
we
over the
flood or
top.
whatever? Like,
Listen, there's a reason they didn't make a second Waterworld, and there's a
you
million
It's a
don't
reasons.
little
need
too
to.
real. The Waterworld movie is a little too on the nose. I didn't watch it as a kid either, and I do have it on my list of movies to review, and I've been dreading it because I know that it's just long and a lot of him just like on a boat in the middle of water, just like
Can we all do
drinking
it?
his own pee.
That's
Okay.
just like,
He's got
well,
gills.
yeah. Why not just scoop up water from around you and like filter that?
You can't filter
Because,
it.
yeah, you can't filter salt water.
One thing that I always like saying, and I forgot it was from this movie, but I said it kind of differently, was damn, damn, damn. Red tube's going down. That was always something.
I
I
used
never
to
forgot
say
what movie it was from.
I used to say the bit from the phone call that we glossed over earlier where he's like, I think they were Asian because they looked Asian.
They were
And
speaking a language, I'm pretty sure it was Asian.
Asian. Me and my dad used to do that bit all the time, and I laughed out loud at that. I did. I will say I did laugh out loud to the cable guy watching it this time a few times.
The
It's got
bathroom fight.
the bathroom fight with Owen Wilson is fucking great too.
Yeah.
You can
The
see
winters
shades.
are surprisingly mild.
When he bends down and gets in his face, and it reminded
Oh
me of
yeah,
it's
that was
like
a cool
shades of the
shot.
Grinch.
Yeah.
Reminded me of like the future Grinch kind of poses that he does in that movie.
Yeah, like
Um,
I think the fight is my favorite part in the movie. The medieval times is my second favorite part, and then I love the dream sequence where he's like, "Terrible guy, okay, I'm going."
okay, I'm
It's
going.
like, yeah,
Yeah, and he pretends to walk away and get like shorter, like he's getting smaller.
yeah.
Boy, that that scene I was looking that probably the most I was looking forward to watching it this time because I haven't seen this movie
The
in a
dream
minute.
sequence?
I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I really wanted to. I have this thing with this movie where after the I feel like I've seen up to the end of the party scene.
Yeah,
That sequence, like from the beginning to the party scene, I've seen that the most, and everything after that, I
yeah.
never really remember.
Retain. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I kind of had that feeling this go around too.
isn't that weird? Like, I don't know if it's just because when it was on TV all the time when we were younger, we just like tune into it and happen to see just like the first hour. But that's the turning point. Right after that, when he reveals that he's a prostitute, or that he had slept with a prostitute, um, that's when things start to turn. So maybe you think you just remember the like good times, basically, between the two, and it's crazy too because if their relationship was just two guys and Jim Carrey didn't do all kinds of weird shit, like cut his cable because he wasn't calling him. Like if he wasn't like a
That was awesome.
stalker, they
Yeah.
would have had. They probably could have had like a pretty good relationship. And not for nothing, man. He gets Steven and Robin back together. Like it's him
It's
meddling
true.
that gets them back together, and it's Steven who can't just give in to just being friends with Chip. Like he didn't even have to do that much more than he was already doing. Just hang out with the guy once or twice a week. Like be friends, invite him to basketball, even though the dude fucking dunks by jumping off Rick's back and fucking breaking
My
the
man
backboard.
Jack Black had Jordan 2s.
Did he?
Yeah.
Those are probably worth a lot of money now.
You don't see them very much.
You're a
I think they have
shoehead,
like
right?
a smidge. I dabble.
What?
I dabble.
Oh, I thought Steven said something.
No, Mike, I don't know what's going on with my Instagram right now. You guys keep dropping out. I'm gonna leave and come back and see if it fixes it.
Cool.
We'll be here.
It's just
The,
it's a low key episode of the show this week. It's I feel like there's not a whole lot to say about the cable guys. It turns out.
sober.
I mean,
There was something I was about to ask you. What was it? Let me see here. What was the
yeah.
last
Also,
thing about?
we are sober.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. I thought I had one beer
Okay.
in
I
the
remember what I was
fridge.
going to ask. Pardon?
I thought I had one beer in the fridge, and I didn't even have that one beer. So I'm drinking.
Well, I mean, there's lots to talk about. It's like it's just a very weird movie. You know, I think a lot of people can watch this and recognize that, like, within their own lives, they've probably had one or two encounters with people that are obviously not as intense as Jim Carrey in this movie, but maybe overstep in terms of trying to be your friend, or, you know, are sort of smothering in wanting to hang out with you all the time. And I think we talked about during our Sandlot episode that all three of us experienced.
Oh, lost you there. We
Did I cut out again?
we didn't. Yeah.
Right. What did you say after experienced?
I said experienced like three times.
Oh.
What did you say after we all watched The Sandlot?
we all watched the Sandlot, and we all experienced moving to a different location and having to remake friends as kids.
Right.
And so all of us in some way have, you know, had to do the thing where you are trying to impress people that you don't know in order to you know, formulate friendships or at least gain friends in a new area. And I don't think any of us have, like, you know, captured somebody's relationship hostage or cut their cable or anything like that. But the moment where Matthew Broderick says, "You're a really nice guy, but I just don't have any room in my life right now for a new friend," and kind of like tries to cut him off and let him down as gently as possible. But it's like, you know, I've never had that happen to me, but it's so hurtful. Even just the way he's like condescendingly saying it to him, and you can see the sadness in Jim Carrey's face. It's pretty hard.
Yeah,
and too at that.
And Jim Carrey's the Chip is already like, he's got some mental stuff. He's had this really hard upbringing where his mom just plopped him down in front of a TV and just like was like, "I'm trying to find you a new dad." That all that stuff.
Do you think he snapped?
I think that moment where that Steve was just talking about is where it became too overwhelming. So he goes into, "I'm going to fuck this guy's life apart," instead of just backing off.
But do you think he's because remember Jack Black character said like he's done this with other people? Like, what do you think in his early life? Like, at what point? So like I'll say this much: like growing up, like I watched a lot of TV or whatever because like that was just kind of the thing or whatever. You know, no dad or whatever. Mom was working a lot, so that part like I recognized with. But then at what point does someone snap and become a crazy like sociopath?
Well, and on that note too, what happened in previous relationships? Like, did he get to the point of fighting a guy in a satellite dish before, or did other people just like give in to the friendship, and just be like, "Okay, you're right. I'll call you tomorrow. Please don't disconnect my cable and frame me for fucking larceny."
At the when he signs after he signs the bill, just doesn't say anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
It might be just like the only the people that ask for the free cable that he tries to
he
stop,
gives them help.
Yeah.
I was
like,
thinking,
I'm giving you something, you got to give me something in return.
I was thinking that, like, if Rick had never been, like, just ask him for the thing, and then if he had never asked him for the thing, credit, right? Like, is that what happens there?
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of plot holes in this movie. We don't need to, like, try and put it under the microscope to be like, but what would happen?
They do a whole Disney Plus what if show about just this movie, about different points in the movie. Like,
what
Disney
happens
Plus?
afterwards? Does he become friends with the helicopter pilot?
well, yeah, that's one thing. And I've always kind of had a theory that he gets reformed, goes to prison, gets reformed, and then him and Matthew Broderick can be buddies. Because I don't think, like I said, like I don't think he was completely not open to being friends.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't open to like this guy sabotaging everything for seemingly no reason.
Well, it's also
The
like, he doesn't have a personality, right? Like his entire persona is built off of the television shows that he watched when he was a kid, which is something that I
Yeah.
can relate to because, I didn't really have a real sense of humor for a long time until I was in high school. Almost all of my humor was based on movies and television and just quoting stuff constantly. And it wasn't until I, went through adolescence, that I developed sort of like my own vibe in terms of like humor and comedy and that kind of stuff. Like to the point that he doesn't even have a name, like he keeps changing his name throughout the movie, and
good point.
they're always just characters from TV shows. Like he's not a real person.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that at the end of the movie, it seems like
Oh, well, one second. We can't hear you.
himself. It seems like he's trying to kill himself, but he's actually trying to destroy the satellite, which is, at the same time, that is like he's killing himself as well, because he is the satellite. His entire personality is television. So when he's killing himself, he's destroying the satellite, and he's basically like he has to destroy the satellite in order to destroy himself. But
I really liked that analogy, and I really liked that whole sequence where you see him like he falls off, and then you think he's impaled, but then he's not. I thought that was a good like cinematography.
He originally wanted to, though.
He wanted to impale.
Like Jim Carrey or whatever wanted the ending to be, or like one of the drafts or something of the script, and like the one that Jim Carrey like preferred or whatever was him dying.
There is one of those trivia facts was that he shot every scene as like super hilarious and like upbeat and comedy, like wacky comedy, and shot the same scene with like more like dark and violent. So I could see the dark and violent take of that was him fucking. Sorry, Steve. I feel like I cut you off there, bud.
No, it's okay. My microphone is doing that for me. Yeah, no, I think I made my point there, but but it's like, the babysitter to him was literally TV when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And he's saving all the future kids from growing up crazy and instead picking up a book.
Yeah, that was also pretty. It's pretty like obvious, very on the nose. Like it's very unlikely that someone would be like, "Oh yeah, books exist," after their cable.
We should do a book review just for a tribute.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because like this movie completely is moot now. Like it doesn't. It like with cell phones and streaming services and the way things have gone, like this, people are going to watch this movie in 10 years and like we only relate to it because we grew up in that world. Like kids today would watch that movie and be like, "What the fuck is any of this?" And then in 10 years from now, people are gonna have no connection to any of it.
That's a pretty good point.
Once everything's holograms and VR.
Yeah, it's very much a time capsule of like the late 90s, or sort of the mid 90s, I guess. This movie.
Yeah, it's 96.
Yeah. No, that was 96. Yeah. The 90s were great, though.
It's true. They had some of the best comedy movies that still, like the comedy in this movie holds up, except for like I think I was just annoyed by Jim Carrey watching it today. I think that was just my issue. I think I was just annoyed by Jim Carrey.
I was gonna say like when someone like makes a weird face and you don't like it, and then someone makes a weird face like, oh, that weird face is soothing for whatever reason. So I
No,
have
but
the opposite feeling.
What?
I kind of know you. I get the idea of comfort, like from media. Like people hate The Office, but The Office is literally the only TV show that can like calm me down on an airplane if I'm freaking out, or like if I'm hungover, so fucking hungover that I can't focus, but I'm too hungover to like fall back to sleep. I got to put The Office on. You know, is that sort of what you're saying?
I guess what I'm saying is I didn't find Jim Carrey like he's doing an extreme character, but I didn't find it to the point where it was annoying or whatever. Like I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. I think I know what you mean, where it's like, you could hear the same joke from two different people, but one person, when they deliver it, it's very funny, but the other person, it just doesn't come off correctly.
Yeah.
I personally didn't find Jim Carrey annoying in this movie any more so than I would find him annoying in any of his movies, because he's always kind of a ridiculous, over-the-top caricature of a real person. And it's surprisingly tame for a movie in the mid-90s. It doesn't have a lot of or any gay panic jokes or transphobia or anything like that. It's rare that you find a comedy from 1996 where they don't say something that's uproariously offensive to
like the F slur or retard.
Not a white male. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you just said it.
I didn't say the F slur. I said retard.
But that's the other one.
Yeah, but
bad.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's kind of cool that you can watch something like this and not be like, oh yeah, I forgot that this was from the 90s. Look how many times they dropped the F bomb, not the
fuck word.
The other one. Yeah, not the fuck word.
Yeah, and I mean, even compared to Stand By Me, that movie had all of those words in it.
So many times. Holy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other stuff, but it's most movies from the '90s do have that, and I like this movie. Like I was saying earlier, does remind me of a Farrelly Brothers movie, and Shallow Hal comes out a couple years later, and I'm sure that movie is just rife with homophobia and sexism and misogyny and fat phobia.
Yeah, the entire movie is the concept is fat phobia.
Body shaming.
So, and those Farrelly Brother movies are all very much like that. And that's, and that sucks, but it's it's a blueprint for new movie makers to go back and be like, not what to do in a comedy. You don't need to rely. That's actually a good point about this movie. They relied on pure, comedic premises. It wasn't just get it? Turns out the prostitute was a dude! Whoa!
Yeah.
Yeah, the joke in that scenario is also not that it was a prostitute. It's that this guy is so oblivious to the fact that, doesn't everybody just have prostitutes? His approach to sex is so scared.
Yeah. I'll get the girls next time.
Yes.
No, that's not the problem here.
Yeah. I buy this time, you buy next time.
I found it funny, though, that whole scene is supposed to be a not 80s or a 90s sex scene. But since this movie, I assume, only has a PG rating, he's just getting his face massaged for 5 straight minutes.
A scalp massage, yeah.
PG rating, folks.
This is
PG
sex.
rating.
Yeah, it's very PG, and I do understand now why parents wouldn't necessarily want their kids, but why my dad was like, I have no problem showing this to my son,
Yeah, the most edgy stuff is the password is vagina.
Nipple.
Nipple.
It's that little thing in the middle that they kind of poking out.
Center. I don't want to play this game anymore. Oh, don't be a stick in the mud, Steven.
My mom just needs to talk about sex, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore.
Well, I got that level of psychological torment. I did understand that trying to play porno password with your fucking immediate family would have been, and girlfriend, and you're not even on your girlfriend's team, you're on your mom's team. That's some fucking ruthless shit, dude.
one of the weird things that stands out for me in this movie, or like one of the things that is like memorable or whatever, is when that chick is getting angry at Clint Eastwood. Or no, Clint Eastwood's getting angry at the chick, and then she's all like, "Did you know you're not supposed to flare out like little wings?"
And then he probably punched her in the face in real life because that was the style at the time.
Apparently, that movie was so she was a stalker or something like that.
Oh, that's the connection there.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's something I'd like to go check out a Clint Eastwood movie.
It's weird that Jim Carrey didn't seem to work with Ben Stiller again after this, or Judd Apatow even.
It's too bad.
Because this movie solidified him as a megastar.
20 million.
He was the highest paid actor of all time for this movie,
which is crazy.
Like, what's his next movie after this?
Eddie's Canadian.
The sequel to. What's his next movie after this? I have a laptop here.
Liar.
Oh yeah.
Liar, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think after this he returned to his wacky comedies for a little while.
I don't know why this isn't working. Sorry, guys.
How do you guys feel about Jack Black not playing a comedic role?
When Jack Black plays that serious roles like that, mostly in this era, it's always off-putting because when you listen to Jack Black talk, the best example is he did a Vanity Fair or GQ, I think it was Vanity Fair, like one of those YouTube videos where he runs through all of his biggest roles.
Yeah.
And he's a very, when he's not, turned on, not sexually, but when he's not on, he's very serious. And I think in the 90s, he wanted to be a serious actor. But, he wanted to be a serious actor who did comedic movies. But the opposite happened, where they see his ridiculous face go, and they want him to do that face, and the little, he did the little demon prance. He did that, which is a Tenacious D staple, where he does this. He did that during the basketball scene, which is a Tenacious D staple. And I think he wanted to keep all of his comedy in the rock and roll universe, and then all of his acting roles be very serious. And I think this and less so High Fidelity, where they're similar characters. I think that's more what he wanted to be. But they saw Tenacious D, and Hollywood was like, no, that's marketable. We want that guy, but no, we don't want JB, or we don't want KG. Sorry, we want Jables, and we want him in big movies like fucking King Kong, being a serious, funny actor.
I think Jack Black's doing all right.
I think Jack Black's doing all right. I think that his career went very well, and is still going very well.
Yes. I think that he has everything that he ever...
Is there any way that I can help him? I just want to be someone's muse. It's like, here you go. Do this one. Now do this one.
Oh. I don't have a lot of notes left on this one, but...
We're just about done here. It's 5 to the hour, so we're just about done here. I pretty much covered. I didn't write a lot of notes for this just because it's such a fresh in my mind movie, across the board.
I also watched it 100,000 times as a kid, so I didn't need to write much down. It's all kind of jammed in there.
Yeah, and I think we covered all of the big stuff about it. I think we talked about who Jim Carrey's character was psychologically. We talked about how, if Steven would have just lightened up a bit, maybe things don't go as horribly. But then also on the other side, on the inverse, it's a fucking comedy movie from the 90s. So these things have to happen for conflict to happen. So I guess
I like the fan theory.
I like the fan theory a lot too. I'm going to be thinking about that from now. I'm just quickly going back through my notes here to see if there's anything else that we didn't touch on. But I think Oh, Kathy
got
Griffith played the voice of his mom, which I don't think we mentioned. Every cast member of the Ben Stiller show had at least some role in this movie.
I
Janine
never saw that
Garofalo.
show.
If you can find it, go watch it because it's really fucking good. It won an Emmy and got canceled in the same year. There's only one
Nice.
season. It
How is
was
that
one
even
of the
possible?
dumbest. It's because it got low ratings, but was so highly critically rated. But then all of the actors on that show all just like went and became megastars.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think.
Ben Stiller's sister plays the secretary.
Okay. And I didn't have any internet to look this up, but and I don't know why. Let's see if I can do it now.
You don't have any internet?
No, well, this laptop I'm using is fucking wanking out on me for some reason.
Weak. That shit's weak. Shit's
It's
weak.
it's weak. It's weak and it's wank. So let's. Why don't you guys, while I'm trying to find out this one last fact here, why don't you guys give us your final thoughts and your rating of the movie if you've got one.
You want first go?
I usually go first. If you want to go first, you can.
Let's see. So as I mentioned earlier, this movie definitely speaks to me in the sense of like I just kind of was raised in front of a TV as well. And I luckily did not become as crazy as this person, but sometimes I do wonder, what is it that makes someone, or like how, like yeah, what is it? What's the final straw that makes someone snap? Um, and luckily there's creative ways of getting feelings out, or watching movies or whatever. And let's see. I do enjoy the movie. There's definitely some laughs. I can definitely understand people being off put by it when it's like, especially when it first came out. Um, Jason made an interesting point about in a few years' time, people aren't gonna really be able, like new people to it that don't have the nostalgic factor of it. It's not really gonna mean much to them. So I'm curious to see what that's gonna be like. I'm gonna give it. Okay, so I'll put my rating here, so I don't interrupt your guys' thing, and then I'll show it at the end.
Okay.
Just going to be a middle finger.
Middle finger out of 5. I wish my hand had 10 fingers so it could be one giant fist for punching. Go ahead, Steve.
So
No, I give
my
it a 3.
microphone doesn't conk out on me here, but yeah, I think this movie is a perfect time capsule of the mid '90s in terms of giving you an idea of what the world was like socially at that time, in terms of both media and just the way that people kind of interacted with one another. Obviously, it's sort of like it's caricaturized or it's exaggerated or stylized in that.
Oh, one
It's
sec.
very much of the camera work, the music, everything is very much of the era. Even the writing feels very 90s. Um,
That
but
song when they were hanging out on the
in all the
couch.
best ways. Yes, that 90s song that you would hear on the radio when you were a kid and your parents are driving you to the mall or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I think that the point that I made earlier about how phone is dying, it's kind of an allegory for um, his psychosis is sort of based upon the fact that he has no personality, and his personality is completely determined by television and him being raised by television. And this is sort of the product of somebody who doesn't have any kind of real social interactions with human beings rather than just characters in TV. So he thinks that he has to act the same way that people act in television shows and movies, which I think is interesting. Um, I do really enjoy this movie. I was surprised at how much it still hit all the points for me in terms of just being satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a creepy, weird story, but it's also enjoyable, and I think that everybody can relate to really wanting to be friends with somebody and them not. And, I think if they did decide to kill Jim Carrey at the end on the satellite dish, you wouldn't really leave the movie with a feeling of any hope whatsoever, and it would be very much a downer.
That's
So I think
true.
why
Yeah.
they didn't do that. You leave the movie feeling kind of giddy and being like, "Oh, that was a fun one." But if he died at the end, you'd be like, "Oh man, that's so sad. He wasn't that bad." Anyway, I do like it. I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5 ish, leaning more towards 4, but I'm gonna say 3.5. It's not obviously not a perfect movie, but it does everything that a movie should do, especially of the era. It's very much a '90s movie, and I love '90s movies, so I do really enjoy this movie. 3.5.
Sweet. That's good because right off the top, I'm going to say I give it a 3.5 as well. It's not quite as low as a 3 to me, although I could see it being rated a 3 very easily. I gave it that extra point 0.5 because of the cast more so than anything, and the soundtrack. They really underlined a lot of that, and that gives it that '90s vibe too. Because there's a part where they're like, "We're going to a Soundgarden show," and when they're playing base basketball, I believe that's it's like Silverchair or Filter or something. And there's a lot of that in the movie, and I find that Jim Carrey movies always have a real '90s music vibe to them. Like in Ace Ventura, he goes to a fucking Cannibal Corpse concert, which is like you don't see that ever. So yeah, 3.5. I believe you guys pretty much covered everything else, and we covered the bulk of the stuff in the actual us talking about it. But I will say that like I said, this time watching it, I was just Jim Carrey's performance annoyed me, but I think that might have actually helped improve it for me because I kind of saw it previously watching it. I would have been like, what's Matthew Broderick's problem? Like, Jim Carrey's awesome. He, like you were saying, Steve, he's always playing TV. He wants to hang out and party. He bought him a whole crazy like stereo system and yada yada yada. Even though it probably fell off the back of a truck.
What did you
all
think
that
when
stuff.
he rearranged his setup at the beginning and like
That's
blocked the
annoying.
entryway?
That's a little frustrating to me.
The
So
remote control. I used to do that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Too, just
Yeah.
like programming the TV
funny.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I give the Cable Guy 3.5 out of 5, and I think that it's a classic, and it's a good movie. I recommend it to anybody that hasn't seen it. And if you haven't seen it in a while, if you haven't watched the movie since the '90s, go watch the Cable Guy because you're going to be like, what is this? Maybe you've forgotten how ridiculous Jim Carrey's performance is in this movie. So that has been another. It's been another episode of Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
I saw it.
Hey.
You see this one?
Hey, you see this one? Hey, oh, you see this one?
Oh.
I can't do. Can you do a list? Hey, did you see this one?
Yes, I
Hey,
can.
you see this one?
That was actually one question I had.
Both of you.
Sometimes he says S's. What is a lisp?
It's just difficulty pronouncing S's. It doesn't mean you are incapable. It just means you have a great difficulty doing it.
Okay.
I also thought
speaking voice is more to slur your S's like this.
I also thought that they were trying to do a weird continuity thing at one point where he was saying T's. When he was beating up Owen Wilson, he was saying his T's. I thought that was supposed to be a continuity thing where he had read that post him listening to the cassette tape, which I thought was super. I thought that was super insensitive to give him that tape, even though his brother is a speech therapist. Anyway, this is the end of the show. should have been left back in the bulk of the show, but cool. So
For
for
bloopers reel.
yeah,
My apologies. My apologies.
for Steve, for Kaylin and Steve, I'm Jason.
For Jason and Steve, I'm Kellen.
For Kalen and Jason, I'm Steven.
I'm gonna make you guys do this every
Or
time.
should I say Steven?
There you go.
Steven.
Steve.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.